He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. Out of that land went forth Ashur, and builded Nineveh, and the city of Rehoboth, and Calah, and reason between Nineveh and Calah, the same is a great city. So that was, where civilization started flourishing again. So that area there, Mesopotamia, Shinar, Erech, Babel, and those lands were those were great cities. They were builded by waters. The land was fertile. That's why the so-called scholars call it the Fertile Crescent. And that's where the Lord caused man to repopulate the earth all over again through Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Okay. Now this is Genesis chapter 11 and verse 1. It says, "And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech." And that's why these clowns in the black unconscious community say that the Hebrew was borrowed from the Proto-Canaanite and them different languages among those ancient people. But that's not the case, because there was only one language at the beginning of the creation, and that language wasn't called Hebrew till later. It was called Lashawan Kodash, which means the holy tongue. Lashawan means tongue, and Kodash means holy. So that holy tongue with those characters, which they call, the so-called scholars call the Paleo-Hebrew, is something that went back thousands of years, even before Israel, Jacob, which was the father of the Israelites, was even born. So that language was among those nations. That's why they used those characters. And then what happened is, what we're going to read is the Lord confounded those languages. That's why that's the point where those nations started speaking different languages. Because when you read the book of Genesis 10 and 25, it says, "And unto Eber were born 2 sons. The name of one was Peleg, which means division, Palag in the Hebrew. For in his days was the earth divided, and his brother's name was Joktan." So what divided the earth? What divided the people? Their language. So when the Lord confounded the languages, whatever people spoke a specific dialect, they would get together with those people and they would migrate somewhere else. All right, so back in Genesis 11 and 1, "And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech." And that's why you have those ancient characters, which they call Hebrew today, or Paleo-Hebrew, among these different nations back then. All right. It says, "And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, and they found a plain in the land of Shinar," which that's in the same area where you have Mesopotamia, right in the region between the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers. It says, "And they dwelt there, and they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar." Because basically what this was like a one world order. Everybody was in one mind frame. Everybody spoke one language. They believed in those different deities, because the word that Elder Taro just looked up, which was a war, it said that matter of fact, let me bring it back up. There was one point there in the land of in the definition, where it says, "City in southern Babylonia, city of the Chaldeans, center of moon worship." So that's one of the gods that Terah, Abraham's father, was worshiping the moon god. That's why, if you notice, that area is not too far from Saudi Arabia. That's why them Arabs worship what? Allah, which is what? A moon god. Because all that history of the worshiping of the moon goes back to that region there. Which that's where civilization began. That's why the Most High told Abraham, "Look, you got to get up out of this land, because I'm going to give you another land, you and your seed after you. I'm going to give you an inheritance." But he wanted to get them away from those people, because those people were worshiping those different gods. Even Abraham's father, Terah. Matter of fact, before I read on, I'll just get there real quick. This is in the book of Joshua, the 23rd chapter. The 24th chapter. I started the first verse. And Joshua gathered all the tribes of Israel to Shechem, and called for the elders of Israel, and for their heads, and for their judges, and for their officers, and they presented themselves before the Most High. And Joshua said unto all the people, Thus saith the Lord, power of Israel, your fathers dwelt on the other side of the flood in old time. Meaning what? That was in that land that we were speaking about. It says, your fathers dwelt on the other side of the flood in old time, even Terah, the father of Abraham, and the father of Nahor, and they served other gods. You know, because that was after the flood. That was the place where they were dwelling, living, and the primary god that was being worshipped back then was a moon god. You know, which went back to Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. You know, because they not only did they worship the heavenly bodies, but they worship men and women on the earth also as those heavenly bodies. That's why you have today what's known as the so-called mother of the Lord. You know, they call her Mary, and then she has a crown of 12 stars on her head, and then she has the moon. She's standing on the moon. Why? Because that all goes back to moon worship. The golden calf. If you look at the golden calf had a horn in the shape of a crescent moon, or in the shape of a crescent, and then you had the actual moon in the middle of it. Why? Because that's what they were worshiping heavy back then. That's what the Lord told Abraham to get out of that land, and that's what they were worshiping in Egypt. That's why when the children of Israel left out of Egypt, what did Aaron do? He crushed up, you know, the gold and the calves. I'm sorry, that was Moses. He took the gold from the people and created what? The calf. What calf? The calf of Egypt that they were worshiping in Egypt. You know, you have some? You know, so what they were doing was just prior to the Most High getting ready to kick Israel out of the land of Samaria, you know, the northern tribes, they were secretly worshiping these gods that they were worshiping in the wilderness. You know, and there's many instances of that in the scriptures where it speaks about different gods that they were worshiping. You know, and they would carry the gods with them, put them in bags, you know, put them in their saddles, you know, and saddle off into the sunset. And then whenever they would get wherever they were and set up their tent, they would set up their gods and pray to the gods and give them water and food and oblations and sacrifices.
Yep. That proved that that's the same people we dealing with today.
Yep, that's right. Now I looked up the word. I put in the word. I think I put in Chaldean Magi, right? So of the Chaldees, the Magi came out of that. Now that's where you get the word magician from, or warlock, or witch. You know, someone that practiced magic from a power outside the power of the Most High Himself, and that's why Yeshaya was wearing them red gloves, and he made that reference to because that's his motherland. Okay, he was talking about where he came from. You see, it says the Chaldean Magi, and I'm gonna show you that.